I'm privileged to have on the legendary rock and roll paranormal investigator, Mr. Keith Age. With over 30 years of experience of paranormal research, he's a lecturer, a paranormal investigator, actor, producer, host, and even event organizer. He's the founder of what was the annual Mid-South Paranormal Convention. It was one of the largest in the United States. In fact, that's where it was that my wife Jen and I first met Keith many, many years ago. He's also one of the organizers of Non-Con each year at the Haunted Pottstown School in Middletown, Ohio. Now, he's the founder and president of the Louisville Ghost Hunter Society, which was formed in 1996, which has 4,000 plus members worldwide. He's married to the love of his life, Robin, and they even got married at one of the non-con events at Pottstown School. Now I could list all the movies, but I won't. But a short list would include Children of the Grave Parts 1 and 2, Soul Catcher, The Possessed, The Unseen, Spooks, The Ghost of Waverly Hills Sanatorium, and many more. We'll talk about many of them tonight. He's also appeared in movies and on TV, both here and in Canada. Now, didn't I mention rock and roll? Oh yeah, that's right. A dynamic bass player with names like Glenn Campbell, Ted Nugent, Blue Oyster Cult, Kentucky Headhunters, Johnny Lee, and more. See, it's my honor to welcome someone who I would just call my friend, Keith Age. I bet you weren't expecting to see the Orb Tones, were you?
No, I was not. For those that don't know, that's also the fabulous Bill Bean playing lead guitar for the Orb
Yes,
Tones.
I saw that. I was when I was doing the film, I was like, okay, I know Bill always has the guitars in back of him when he does the show, but I don't think I ever heard him live play. And then
Well,
I caught that clip, and I was like, wow, he's pretty good.
Bill is an awesome guitar player.
Yeah.
Hello, Steven. How you doing tonight, buddy?
Very good, Keith. How are you? And I've changed your name. We would going through. It's the legendary rock and roll ghost hunter, and I know as well as you, we don't like to be called ghost hunters.
I don't care.
So I now call you the paranormal
investigator. Here, I'm going to change a few other things too. I need to change my bio a little bit because it's it's almost 45 years now I've been doing this. And I'm not an actor, sorry.
Well, you've been documentaries, you've been an actor. That's still considered an actor.
That was me being myself.
There you go.
And I have been in over 40 different documentaries on the paranormal. So, yeah.
But that's why I said I'm going to list all of them.
Yeah, it's almost as long as I've been doing it. So, you know. But anyway, I don't care. Call me the ghost, ghost hunter or paranormal investigator. I don't care about being PC about anything. Mm-hmm. You know, I'm just me. What you see is what you get.
Exactly. Now, we spent a lot of time lately together. Like I think non-con, we spent the whole day together.
We spent a lot of time at a lot of different events in the last year.
Yes, exactly. But I want you to take us back and take the people back to your childhood. What it was like growing up for you. I mean, did you come from a musical family? Give us all that little info.
No, I am the only musician in my family. I started playing guitar when I was 10 years old. and they're one of the best guitarists in the country. Actually lived here and taught music, and that's who I originally went to. And him and I couldn't stand each other, so then quit for a while, and then went to a different place. And a gentleman by the name of Rusty Ends ended up teaching me how to play, and he taught me for about 3 years. And when I was 14, I was out playing gigs, but when I was 12 years old, I played my very first gig. So, so yeah, I've been playing in bars since I was 12 years old. So, it's quite a long time now. What else you want to know?
I guess it would help if I turned my mic back on. You might hear me, okay? I'm talking and I'm talking to myself.
Evidently.
Was it always rock and roll that you were playing, or?
No, I've played a little bit of everything. Do you remember the Rifleman show?
Sure do.
Okay. You remember the little boy and the Rifleman?
Yes.
Well, he grew up and had a big band, if you will, and I played with him off and on for 20 years. He died, and so I played a little bit of everything. I started out learning rock and roll, but like I said, Rusty Ends, the guy taught me a lot about different musics, how to play different styles, and then I just you learn on your own and go from there.
So, when did you first pick up a bass, really, for the first time, and seriously say, this is what I want to play?
When I was 11 years old. Like I said, I started out learning with the other guitar teacher, and then quit, and then got up there and saw, I can't remember who it was, but I saw him on TV, and I said, why has that guy only got 4 strings? That's probably easier to play. Boy, was I wrong. It's like playing lead guitar all night long.
And it's not as easy. I've been a bass player for years. It's not as easy as it looks to people.
Oh,
really not. And for
like
some
I
reason,
said, like I said, it's like playing lead guitar all night, because even though you might be doing the same pattern, you're all over the neck.
mm-hmm.
If you're doing something good, if you're playing country, old school country is pretty boring, but do some Texas swing or you're everywhere. So,
Well, the worst part is that we're also keeping the drummer in time too.
oh yeah, you got to hold. I hate playing with a drummer who can't keep his timing, and because it just makes your job so much harder. And it's just some drummers you just can't hold. And I've fired plenty, but for those that don't know, the name of the boy and the Rifleman was Johnny Crawford. So played for him off and on all through the years.
Okay, so if you played big band and stuff, how did you suddenly go to the big name acts we were talking about? Because that's a big leap.
Here in Louisville, there was a place that used to be here called the Toy Tiger, and it was a rock and roll place, back in the 70s. And Mr. Nugent happened to walk in, and this was during his days of suing band and trying to get the rights to his music. And he said, I like the way you sound, I like the way you play. Would you like to be a better player? And I was like, are you kidding? From you? Lord, yeah. So that was the start of it. So when I turned 16, I was on the road with Mr. Nugent learning, and then playing the gigs all over the world. And then after that, your name gets out there. And of course, I know you said the Kentucky Head. We all grew up together here in Kentucky. We all played different bands and stuff, but we all knew each other. And so there's actually pictures of me at the band house from when I was 16 back then, or 17. And, they're great guys. Matter of fact, I knew them back when they were called Itchy Brother. That was their original name. And so just from there, just your name gets out there, and if you don't put a problem with what you're doing or the people, you do your job and go on with it.
Because I remember we were sitting at NonCon, not last year, but the year before. No, not NonCon, the Paranormal Day at Hatter House. And I remember you showed me on your phone this little video of you playing with Blue Oyster Cult.
Yeah.
I looked for that. I couldn't find that on the web.
That was a long time ago now. I don't move like that no more.
Hey, as long as we're standing up, we're moving. So, I mean,
as long as you're breathing, you're still moving right now.
Yes, exactly. What about like people like Glenn Campbell and stuff? What did you do with them? And Johnny Lee too.
Well, Johnny Lee, I had a manager back then by the name of Lou Temple, and he got me the gig, Johnny Lee, and then that was early '80s, and for about a year and a half, almost two, and then Glen Campbell bought my contract out, and I started playing for him, and Glen Campbell was probably one of the most gifted guitar players I've ever played with in my life. The man could just run rings around a lot of these guys, and never had a lesson in his life. Learned how to play all on his own, and it was interesting. We'll put it that way.
There's a documentary on Glenn as he was fading out later in the years.
Yeah,
but one thing he could do was still play that guitar. I mean, really, he would go and just jam. I mean, just go nuts.
Yeah, even when he went into the nursing home, at towards the end, he didn't remember anybody, but he still had his guitars, and that was his only. That and his clothes were the only thing in the nursing home.
It's sad, but he was a legend. I mean, he really was a legend. Now, there's a leap that takes place here where we go from the legendary rock and roll bass player to the legendary rock and roll paranormal or ghost hunter. Okay, how did you get interested from playing and all of that? How did we go from there to ghost hunting?
Well, I am a child of the 70s, a musician of the 70s. My whole life back then was sex, drugs, and rock and roll. I lived it, learned it, did it. I take full credit for everything I did back then. And, and then when I came off the road, I met a young lady who would never take me over to meet her mom and dad. And I just figured just because I had hair down to my ass and the full beard, the rock and roll look, and she just didn't want to bring me on the parents, So finally, her parents invited me over on her birthday to surprise her, and it surprised her when I showed up. And she just had this, oh my God, look on her face when she saw me at the door. And she's like, wow, what are you doing here? I said, well, your parents invited me. You ain't got to worry no more. And she said, no, it's not because of my parents. It's because we have a ghost in the house, and he doesn't like mine and my sister's boyfriends. And I was like, yeah, right, let's go smoke another one. So it's just a little bit ranch house here in my neighborhood. And we were sitting on the couch, and you could see down the hallway to the master bedroom, and this mirror was facing us. Well, something kept breaking our image. And I finally just said, okay, I got to see what this is or who this is. I went down there, and there's nobody in the room whatsoever. I tore the room apart. And so she's like, I'm telling you, it's the ghost. He's looking for us. And I was like, yeah, right. So I started being young, dumb, and stupid and started calling this thing out. So for 3 hours, I was telling it, show me, do something. I don't believe in you. You don't have any power. Just stupid stuff like that. And at the end of the night, I went to kiss her goodbye inside the living room at the front door. And then I just felt something grab hold of my left arm tight. And I thought, oh, hell, Dad's got a hold of me here.
I was just going to say, you sure it wasn't Dad?
Yeah. And I could see him sitting over in a lazy boy. And I was like, he just had this, oh my God, look on his face. And the next thing I know, I was flying backwards through the front door, through the screen. I landed about 6 feet out in the front yard. And I was just like, oh man, that was so cool. Do it again. And that's what got me started in ghost hunting. And then, so that was late 70s. And then by the 90s, I'd already been through a lot. I had taught at U of L a couple times. And, because I am not psychic at all. And just, modern techniques that had been in place at that time. And ghost hunting without a psychic or not being psychic, I think was what the name of the class was. And then in '96, I started the Louisville Ghost Hunters, and of course in the early 2000s it exploded. And then and then we did the TV show, and it really went big guns in. And then but before the TV show, I'd already been on several different TV shows. But one of the cool things about it is, like I said, I put my group, the LGHS, on the internet in 1996. You know what number of ghost hunter group I was?
Probably one.
No, we were the 39th.
Okay, because there really weren't many back then.
Yeah. Do you know who was 38?
Taps.
Jason Hoss.
Yeah, okay.
And and we've all known each other since all that. Him, Staffus, the ones that are now considered the old people in this paranormal.
I told you we're polished antiques. Okay.
Yeah.
We went through this before we came on the air. We're polished antiques at this point now. So how did you go from that to the boots? To like Chris and
Okay.
And Spook Films, I should say.
I had talked to the new owners of Waverly Hills in late 99, early 2000, because they were buying the place, and I promised my group would help clean up the place, and as long as for the rights to get up here and do the investigations. And we did. And Waverly Hills was just a real mess back then. And then started doing the tours, which started out just to be for Halloween, and they were so successful, it went past Halloween, and it just got from there. And then the Booth Brothers showed up to make Spooked. They're not Spooked, but
Children of the Grave?
No, the horror movie. I've lost it. Sorry, it's been a long day. So anyway, they were making the independent horror movie there, and the real things started happening to them, and that's when we met. And matter of fact, they showed me the way Spooked actually got started. They showed me some dailies of where they about drowned this poor actress. Because in an independent horror film, you got to have what I call a big boob blonde in the shower scene. And so they got this girl, taking a shower inside Waverly Hills, and from a corner, you can see this black mass just come in and just slide in and just stop, and then it would move on. It would come from either side, or it'd dip down low, or something like that. So they showed me the dailies, and Philip Booth says, "What is this?" And I said, "Well, welcome to my world, shadow person." And he goes, "Well, what's he doing to my shot, mate?" And I said, oh, I guess you like the view. And that actually is what got started. And if you actually go watch Death Tunnel,
I was just going to say, it was that Tunnel. I was
Yeah.
just going to ask if that was Death Tunnel.
Yeah, if you go watch the movie Death Tunnel, you'll see that scene still in there. They left it in there, and that's when we started. They had the idea to shoot a documentary, and it Universal bought it after that, and it just exploded.
Well, you guys helped really put that place on the map. I mean, really, it went skyrocketed after you guys were in there doing the tours, cleaning it up. I mean, Waverly Hills just like, I mean, it's ridiculous to the point where I'm going to tell you, as a paranormal investigator, to book a date is like at midnight, on New Year's Eve, right when the bell strikes 12, you had to be there online, and you were lucky even if at that moment you could get a weekend.
Yeah, and it's still pretty much that way now. I mean, I was there from 2000 to 2005, and from it going to having 3 feet of garbage and debris in the hallway to being totally cleaned up, and when I first got up there was no electricity whatsoever to the building, no water, and then the water got ran from the water tank, and then it eventually got city lines put in and stuff, but you know that was like 2003, 2004. So yeah, for that many years there was nothing up there.
So tell us about Children of the Grave, the first one. Okay, I've
No,
seen part two. I could not see part one, so you're going to have to tell me about part one. It's not
well,
anywhere on television where you can rent it.
well, now you can actually buy it. Chris and Phil have actually gotten up here and had more made,
Okay.
digitally remastered, and uh, it's been, it looks really, really good. And so instead of going buying one for $100 off of eBay, go buy one from them for 20. And so and you have to contact them to order them. So, but you can get them from them now. Matter of fact, I've got an order with them that'll be here after Scarefest this weekend. But Children of the Grave started out because Spooked, when they aired it, the next day they called Chris and said, "Okay, what else you got?" And we were scrambling on because we hadn't planned it. And so then I came up with the idea. So what about Children Go? We're like, yeah, we liked that idea. And then we happened to had Mid South that weekend, and a young lady came in, got telling us about a graveyard in Indiana that had over 2,000 unmarked children just buried in there. And we got listening, and we actually went up there. Mid South got over at 5 o'clock on Sunday. We were on the road at 6 p.m. And we actually went up there and shot, and that's what started the whole Children of the Grave. Well, the thing is, I remember doing an event with Jason and Grant with about 10,000 people up in New York or somewhere, and Spooked had just come out, and big hit, and all these people listening to us talk and everything. And then I had previews of what was going to be Children of the Grave, but we were calling it Creepy Kids back then, with a K, creepy with a K. And that was going to be the next special, but Sci-Fi didn't like that name. So we changed it to Children of the Damned. They didn't like that name either. And then they came back with, how about Children of the Grave? So we were like, okay, we go with that.
It's actually, for those that are listening, I mean, basically you go from place to place, or I should say location to location, filming
And basically what it was, it was about children ghosts, basically about orphans and then orphan trains of the 1800, which I knew nothing about at that point. And it just, I love history anyway. And this is a history I had never heard of that actually affected all the mid states all the way to California and from New York on through. Back in the late 1800s and the early 1900s. Basically, kids could get shanghaied and taken out west and sold, slave labor. Some people could get children workers for less than they could buy a cow. And we went to a lot of different orphanages and this place in Indiana with children buried there, which at that point had a marker put on, and they found a lot of the children's names that they put in there just right next to the indigent people who had markers, but these people didn't. These kids didn't.
We see that a lot with like places like Randolph County. Those people that are just had nothing, they were very poor, were put into all these places. And then
Yeah.
they were also put in there with all the sick mentally and physically people as well.
Yeah, but back then you could be put into a mental institution for a lot of different reasons.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, to say, hey, I saw a ghost. And you'd probably be put right in there back then, too.
Well, back then, even if you did weird things like masturbating or anything like that, you could get put in for being criminally insane. It just, if you go look at the laws and stuff from back then, 1800s, these laws last up to the 1950s. It was just crazy.
That was pretty handy of them to have that law in place.
Oh
But
yeah, oh yeah.
so we go from music, we go from the movies, the documentaries, as I'll call them. Okay, how did we get to Mid South Paranormal Convention? Because that was actually the biggest convention in the country at one time, was it not?
Yeah, it was. And that's what a lot of them to this day have been, fashioned after, which is what I did. I was the Kentucky rep for Troy Taylor's American Ghost Society for a long time. And then I went to several of Troy's conferences and I said, I want to do this. I want to have a convention, though. I want to make it big. And I want to treat it like a rock and roll show, which is what I know how to do. And that's exactly what I did. I treated it like a rock and roll show. On Friday night, I created a band called the Orb Tones, and
Which we just saw part of.
yeah, and it was just a rotating list of paranormal people. And matter of fact, the lead singer that you saw in that and the keyboard player, Ron Cundiff and Paul Nevin, and I have been playing together for years. And we stopped playing right after the pandemic kind of loosened up a little bit. And, Bill Beam was there from the beginning. Uh, just a whole different list of characters sat in and played with us every year. And, that was a highlight. The Friday night party was just huge. And, we grew this thing to where we got almost 8,000 people show up for this thing. And that's still huge numbers for the paranormal world. And then and then after 20 years of doing it, I said, I'm tired of doing this, and time for a change. Take a break, and then I still like doing events, and that's why I put on several different ones. Then I do ghost hunts and stuff like that, and then started the non-con because I love Post Town. Post Town is one of my favorite places to go to. I love the school, and I love Brenda and Daryl.
The caretaker.
And times when I've been on the road coming home, and it's they're 2 hours away from Louisville, and we'd call them on the phone 4 o'clock in the morning and say, "Can we come crash? We're wore out. We can't go much further." And they'd say, "Yeah, doors open. Just lock it behind you." So we'd come out and crash floor post town, you know.
As
They're
the
just
person
really
who
good.
does the website for them, I have to give that as thing. It is one of my favorite places to investigate there too, or just hang out. Jen and I have gone up many times and just hang out with Daryl and Brenda. You go out to dinner with them and stuff. So they're good people.
Yeah, a couple years ago, that's where I spent my vacation at. I just went there and vegged.
The school never they say when you leave you believe, but I think in all the times we investigated there was never a time we left and said, well, that sucked tonight. There was always something going on there.
Yeah, when we shot the Possessed, we shot a segment with Post Town at that time. And what was funny was we shot a segment the day before, and I actually broke my leg in two places the day before. And, I could still move it. Oh, it was killing me, but, walk around on it and everything. And Scotty, have you ever asked Scotty Rourke about what happened the day I broke my leg in Ohio? So we went to Post Town the next day, and I remember us waiting on Daryl. I hadn't met him yet, and I was outside in the parking lot leaning up against my girlfriend's SUV. And I had taken a couple pain pills, and I was trying to let them kick in. And then from around the corner, here comes Captain Spaulding. And I'm like, what the hell? Oh man, these are good drugs. It's the first time I take them. And then I'm starting to go, wait a minute, I know Sig. I know Sid. I've known him for 15 years or so at that time. Took him to Ghost with me. And Sid, he was 6'5", 6'6". He's a great big guy. Here's this little bitty guy walking up to me. I was like, Sid shrunk. But full Captain Spaulding makeup, and I'm like, man, I thought I was just hallucinating or something. I was like, what's Sid doing here? And it was Daryl. He came out to meet me, and that was my first time meeting Daryl in Captain Spaulding makeup.
See, now I'm not going to ask you about Scotty because the last time I did the message he sent back to you, I would actually change the rating of this show if I put it on the. But yeah, he was on, and I believe he spoke about you. But you see, that was one of the great things. I mean, I know one year Jen and I had a booth. I think it was called Mid America at that point.
Yeah.
Yeah, at the last one.
Yeah.
I mean,
that's when I partnered up with Con Fright Fest, and had over 10,000 square foot building, and we filled it up, and had a lot of horror stars from had Tyler Maine, who big horror star, and then you had the guys from Fright Night, and then all the people from what is the name of that movie? Where they brought back Frankenstein, Dracula, the Mummy, Werewolf, and the Creature.
I know there was a couple of people came to our booth that day from those. Yeah, Jen would remember more than I would.
And so, and then the girl that played Scout in To Kill a Mockingbird, the little girl, she was there too.
Mm-hmm. Well, the one person I was super impressed that was there was someone who I got to meet really well, was Bill Chappelle. Now, I know Bill's been in a number of, I think he was in a movie or two.
Billy was in his very first movie with us called The Possessed.
Right.
Yeah, I've still got one of his original oviluses that was made for me, Patrick, and Dave, Darkness Dave, and it has our names on them. He had them customized for us, just for us, and they've come a long way since then.
He's a great guy. We talked probably half of the conference. You know, people didn't know who he was because all his banners and everything didn't come with them. They ended up at some other airport, if you
Yeah,
remember.
he had 2 boxes that didn't show up
Yeah.
that he brought with him, and they flew to somewhere else, and they didn't get them back to him. So his signage and all of his gear and gadgets and stuff that he had for sale, uh, you know, here's Billy Chappell, the man who created almost everything you've seen on Ghost Adventures, and then he had 3 or 4 pieces of gear with him, and that was it.
I mean, I would send people over when they were at our table when they knew they were paranormal. People, I said, "You see that guy over there? Do you know who that guy is?" And they'd be like, "No." I was like, "Do you use a novelist?" That's yeah, all the time. It's like, okay, well, if you use a novelist, then you know who that guy is because he's
Yeah,
the one that developed that. They're like, "Really?" It's like, yeah, go over talk to him. So I was
yeah,
like sending people over to his table the whole
yeah.
time.
He was almost directly across from you guys,
Yeah,
and
exactly.
yeah, and like I said, his gear didn't get there, and neither did his posters or his signs or nothing like that. So he was at a real bad disadvantage.
You know, this show has been fortunate and it's kind of strange. There's a little underlying theme so far that has gone on to kick off the show, where it's been you, Bill Bean. We've had Rick Hayes on, who you know very, very well. Scotty Rourke, who's been
I
on.
know very, very well. Yeah.
Yep, and of course Tim. You know, um, we mentioned earlier that you played in many bands, but I mean, how did the Orb Tones actually get started? I mean, we saw it. You talked about the different members in it, but whose idea was it to say, "Hey, you know what? A Friday night's party. Let's put together a band from this."
It was my idea back in the MySpace days.
Wow.
Okay. And I put it out that, the Orb Tones were playing. I took a page out of Houdini's playbook and said, they're playing over in Europe for the Prince crowned heads, and great big following over there. And people were just got excited. Well, at that point, I knew Bill Bean played guitar. I didn't know how well he played it, but I knew he did, and he was getting ready to be. He was coming to be a guest. This was the fifth Mid South, so for 15 years, the Orb Tones have played the party, and we had a little over 2,000 people for that event, and we played at a place called Crown Plaza Hotel, and you could only put 125 people in the room where we played at, and the place got packed quick. And I got my drummer from my band, my touring band I was playing with at the time called Doubleback, and got him to play. Got our sound engineer to run sound for us, and then just me, Billy Bean, drummer, and Trish Yancey sang a few songs too. And that was it. And Tim Yancey played bongos, and that was the first incarnation of the Orb Tones. And people walked in expecting some you know band out of Europe, and it was us. So like I said, Ron, the lead singer, was part of my group, the Louisville Ghost Hunters, and he was a good singer. And I said, "Hey, you want to do this?" He's like, "Yeah, let's do it." So we did it. We didn't know what we were gonna play, what we were gonna do. We just walked up there and just started jamming.
Now, I remember there was a year Jen and I stayed the entire weekend. I remember Robbie Thomas was there. I'm trying to think of who Scott Tepperman was there. Um,
Yeah,
uh,
that clip you showed of the Orb Tone, that was that year. Because while everybody was setting up on that Friday morning, we were at the news station getting set up for that. We had to be there at 7 o'clock in the morning, and that show was on 9 a.m. to 10 a.m. And what was cool was, they had us on every year, for the Mid South for many years, and Lord, it just, over 1 million people viewed that show that day. And then that weekend, we had almost 9,000 people show up for the Mid South.
It was the one event that Jen and I always look forward to attending. A Scarefest is nice, don't get me wrong. It's a little longer for us to go to Lexington. But it just seems like this year the prices are ridiculous. A 1 day pass, it's like $35, $40.
Yeah. Well, that was one thing I always kept as low as I could with the Mid South, because, let's face it, if people ghost hunt, this is a hobby right now. There has been nothing, formally recognized as a scientific fact. And we're all just data takers. So, and all of us usually have a daytime job. And, I can't think, I can only think of a couple people who are actually rich that do this stuff, and can afford this stuff. But, most of us don't have a lot of money to throw around, especially in today's economy. So that was one of the things with Mid South. For $40, you get in for the whole weekend. And if people did gallery readings and stuff like that, I left it up to them to charge what they wanted and advertise. Because that's not for me to say anything. As long as I broke even, that's all I cared about.
And it was a great event, but like even with non-con, I don't know if it is the economy or what. Interest seems to be waning slightly in going to these events.
Well, I'll admit this year non-con just was a real big disappointment in the attendance. Uh, we had more people show up the year before during the COVID pandemic than we did for this year. And me, Daryl, and Jason, we've talked about it a little bit. We think we're going to change it some up. We don't know, or might not even have it. We don't know yet.
Well, you have to blame Shania Twain this year. Whether you realize it or not, I'm serious. There was a concert in Middletown that was run by Marsh. It was like some kind of free concert that had Shania Twain on Saturday.
During
this
the day?
is what I was told at the hotel that I was staying at. They're like, "Oh, did you here for the concert?" I was like, "No, we were here for Poachtown." And they're like, "No, there was a big concert here right in town." So I think that might have done a little bit of damage to the people that were showing up. I don't know. We did well, so I'm not complaining. It was a good event for us.
No, I'm glad you did. We'd said the year before when we started planning it that we wanted to make it smaller because the year before that it had just we had people on every floor doing something and it was just too much. So eh, it might have run its course. I don't know.
Okay, I'm going to change course just slightly. Go back to the paranormal. I don't want to talk about specific shows on TV because you know how this field works with gossip. Oh, he's knocking this show, he's knocking that show. But just in general, do you think we're going in the right direction with paranormal?
I don't know. For the simple fact, as long as people are enjoying the ghost hunts and all that stuff, and they're enjoying watching people get possessed every week, you got to remember this is made for entertainment purposes, and until we can actually find some real documentation and real evidence, I'd love to see that, but they're throwing everything but the kitchen sink on these shows, and that's just like we're filming a new one called Bourbon Spirits, and we're showing what ghost hunts actually look like because they can be pretty boring, as you know, and we have caught evidence in some places, and some places we haven't. So, that'll be aired next. It'll be streaming next year. Matter of fact.
One of the things I always tell people, at the library presentations, whatever we do. It's like what you see on TV is like 17 minutes with commercials. Okay, they
Yeah.
had 3 days to get those 17 minutes, at a location. And most of the time, we're sitting in a room, and I've actually questioned myself. It's like, where did I hit my head? Okay, because it's Saturday night at like 1 o'clock in the morning, and I'm sitting in an empty room saying, if you're here, can you show us some sign of you? And I'm talking to myself because there's nobody else here. Okay, where did I go wrong? But people seem to think it's that glamorous stuff that you see on the TV shows, or like you say, they're waiting for someone to get possessed. We won't mention what show name that is, but it's every week. Okay, he's getting possessed. Um, you still doing private homes with Louisville Ghost Hunters?
Yeah. Yeah. When we get them, we do. Yeah.
I noticed it's
Steve,
starting to pick up a little bit again.
yeah,
But
Steve, I tell you what, brother, I am not feeling well all of a sudden. Uh, I need to get off of here.
okay, well, I don't want to hold you, especially that. Um, you take care of yourself, and I want to thank you for actually coming on the show tonight.
Oh,
And
thank you. I do
okay,
appreciate it, and I am very sorry. Just
no, it happens
here the
for all of us. So
last 10 minutes or so, I just
I
oh
noticed
Lord,
you went from sitting back to sitting up, so I knew
yeah,
something was wrong. So Keith, you
yeah.
take care of yourself, and we'll talk again soon.
All right, buddy. Thank
And
you.
say hi to Robin for us.
I sure
All
will.
right. Okay. Bye bye.
Bye bye.
Now, for everybody that's still here, I just want to let you know. Sorry what happened with Keith. And we actually were coming to the end of the questions. I do want you to know that Keith does have a book out, and it's called Out of the Dark, that you can find. And you can read a lot about what we talked about here today on the show and a lot of the stuff that he has. Um, you can look up Louisville Ghost Hunter Society on the web, and I'll put a link actually on the show talking about that. And this way, we'll have something going on for that. Now, I want to talk about very briefly. We're dealing with with Keith, who was a rock and roller. Next week, we're going to have, I think for myself, it's going to be a different special show. We're going to thankfully start to put some of the paranormal on the side and go back to what the show was about. Even though we've been talking to authors and psychic mediums and stuff, I want to go, like Monty Python would say, for something completely different. Next week, we have a guest on by the name of Peter Barron. Okay, Peter Barron played with Leslie West, with He's in all around rock and roll with Keith. He's been everywhere. And Peter is a very close friend of mine. We actually grew up together, actually right across the street from each other. So I haven't seen him since I was 18 years old, and tomorrow I turn 64. So it should be very interesting. Peter is still playing all over the place. If you live in New York, you'll find him in the clubs. He's got a band he's put together. He does tributes to Leslie West. He also writes commercials, jingles and stuff for commercials. He produces bands, some really, really good current rock bands that are up and coming. So you're not going to want to miss that show next Thursday night at 8 p.m. So I want to thank everybody for joining us tonight. Sorry we had to cut the show a little short, but we send our best wishes to Keith, and we hope that Keith gets better soon. And once again, we thank you for joining us. If you can hit the like button, if you haven't subscribed to the channel, hit the subscribe button and the bell. It really does help us. And we thank you, and we truly thank you for joining us today